you?
Here, beside you.
But I can't see you.
Of course you can't. I'm a ghost.
Ghost? Can a ghost sneeze?
It's cold in the other world. So cold.
Cinematic Fantastic.
Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today.
Just before we get started in this Invisible Man Returns episode, I wanted to read out a comment that we got on the Ape Man episode. After all, earlier I said we read comments, so I wanted to actually apply that and read a comment. So we have Convos here saying from one podcaster to another, you guys have this awesome chemistry as you review the classics. Can't wait to see what you guys have in store, Mr. T. Hashtag shout out.
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Convos, for the compliment.
You're my son, and I'm your dad. Boogie woogie woogie. No, we're father and son. I've known you your whole life. You've been the best part of my life. So far.
Great minds think alike.
When we started this, I had this thought in my head where I was kind of like, are you just getting him interested in these things, so he'll be like you? And then I went, no, I'm just going to put this out there and see if he likes it and see what happens. And you gave it a shot, and your brain came at it from a different angle that I thought would happen. And I think it was a pleasant surprise. Whereas at first I was a little bit like, okay, am I just trying to make him like me and like the same things I like? And then, I realized you're a human being. You have your own thoughts. And I think every father realizes that about their child, not to wax.
And I mean, here in Cinematic Fantastic, we are not trying to be just big, huge, enormous, content creators who only care about the money and who are just doing all the stuff that maybe many people see them. Maybe we do get some money. Maybe we do make lots of content, sure. But at the heart of that is that we want to make a great podcast and to enjoy making it. So, yeah, thank you so much for the comment, Convo. Or as you put in the comment, Mr. T.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comment, and we will get into the podcast.
Yeah.
Howdy do to lolly, listeners of Cinematic Fantastic Podcasts. Yes. Today we are doing The Invisible Man Returns, the sequel that everyone wanted, as compared to me saying before with Bride of Frankenstein, the sequel that no one wanted. This one, actually, I think people might have wanted.
I think they wanted the Bride of Frankenstein. They liked Frankenstein's monster. They wanted him back, right?
I know, I was joking before.
Well, okay, and of course, the last movie we did was The Ape, and I think I may have just...
It had a twist that literally none of us saw. All the twists... They didn't even set them up. Just all the twists, we didn't even see them coming. Please, and I emphasize, please see it. It's on YouTube. It's public domain. It's an hour of your time. If you spend time listening to podcasts, you can easily power through a 1 hour movie. It's gonna boggle your brain. Even if it doesn't, even if it makes sense to you, you can still listen to our podcasts and hear our take on what The Ape even was, if it even was a movie.
It's not even the worst movie of all time. That's the thing. We were like, what is going on? But the thing is, it's not even the worst movie of all time. I don't even trust those lists of movies that say that which one's the worst, because somebody will say, well, have you seen blank? And it's even worse than that. So I just say,
so The Ape is really bad.
Rough.
It's pretty rough, but There could be worse. I mean, you could be watching paint drying for 10 hours the movie, so.
There are movies that are super, super long. I think there's actually one that zooms in forever on a scene.
And there's also another movie that's really long as well, called Life. It's super long.
Yeah, I'm
99 years approximately.
I'm in the 46th year of my movie that I've been watching. It's interesting. It's got lots of drama in it.
So much drama and a little bit of suspense.
Yeah, I really don't know.
They didn't know if you were gonna get your law firm papers.
I don't know when I'm gonna die. I don't know how my job is gonna go. Yeah. So 1940. The Invisible Man returns.
We are in the 40s. It's really nice to set foot in a new decade when you've been in the 30s for long. It's sad to see the 30s go, but I mean, the 40s is sort of similar, except they really had the foundation of the previous stuff that they did. In our case, the Universal stuff that we did earlier, the first movies, and then the sequels is really the forefront of what we're doing later this season. They were building off the foundation that they had previously. So while the first movies maybe the pacing isn't that good, maybe they're keeping it fairly simple of a plot, they are just upgrading left and right in their production, their production value and what they want to do for these
sequels. If you think of it, this is like phase 2 of Marvel, but the 3 and 4 phases of Universal's are not going to be great. I'm sorry, they're just...
Yeah, phase 2 was really great, and phase 4 onwards...
yikes.
Just...
Not as many hits as misses. Now, okay, so with this is what some people call the second phase or the second stage of the Universal monster movies. To diminishing returns. It's diminishing returns.
And now that they're not suckling on the milk of being new to, movie making, they are really starting to make next levels of movies, honestly. And I can especially profess to this movie, as well as a movie that we did earlier, Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Also sort of having a little bit of that, where it's just like this stuff where I was noticing, this script is fairly modern in its composition. I would sort of do this as a script here. And there was also lots of effects. There was lots of like set piece.
The story can
lots
of
situations
story really moves.
Really were very interesting. There was a misty manner while they were putting mist for it, searching for the Invisible Man. There's a climactic or a very suspenseful scene on in a coal mill factory.
Yes, colliery or whatever they call those places.
A colliery.
It's a coal mine, basically. So, but yeah, that's a suspenseful scene. So some of the effects work really. Okay, let's talk about the effects real quick. It was nominated. It's Fulton who did it. The same guy who did it in the previous movie. It's been 7 years since the previous movie. So people go kind of watching and being in awe and their jaw dropping. You're not really going to get that, but they're going to try some different things. In some ways it works, in some ways it doesn't. But that's what the technology was at the time. So
as we talked about before with the Invisible Man, what they were doing was the early form of green screening. You'd put black velvet, and then you'd use the black velvet with special processes to remove the black velvet, and only the black velvet.
Well, you get some edging.
Colors. You do get some edging, but just like green screens, it would take out backgrounds, so you could have an Invisible Man walking around and stuff. And they really took it to more levels in this movie than in the previous movie. That is objective.
That is true. They did try some new things though too. I think if you want to talk about the effects that did work really well, I liked the outlines of the main character Jeffrey Radcliffe. I liked the outlines of him in the smoke or the fog or the rain.
Yeah,
those
the
were
smoke
pretty
and the
good.
fog and the rain. Those were all great. Another thing was the reflections as professed by their new updated Universal Pictures logo, which has this reflective glass ball effect that they, I guess, updated to show, ooh, we have cool reflections now. That's cool. But I did notice in some stuff like China sets, the reflections of lighting, obviously. Just things are getting
better
sharper
cameras. I tell you,
in
it's
image.
better cameras because all the other movies had that too. Yeah,
and also the restoration people were also really great too. For that, especially for that. But I was like, wow, look at the reflections on the China. Look at all this stuff. There's some eye candy.
A and B Universal Pictures are going to get restored really well. It's these movies that people don't know a lot about. Maybe they went to public domain. They didn't spend the time.
They would restore the Invisible Man. The Invisible Man didn't have as much, reflections and rain and fog and snow. Well, there was some stuff.
They didn't put the reflections in later. That stuff was all the camera picking that stuff up. And then when it restored it, it just restored whatever it captured in the first place. The cameras during 1933 were not as high tech, and because the tech is getting better.
Especially with the advent of Technicolor, which we talked about in our Adventures of Robin Hood episode. That definitely had to have an upgraded camera to sort of accompany that new innovation with cameras. Speaking of cameras, there are also lots of different camera motions in this movie. Lots of different pans. There's some great scenes.
The sweeping pans. Yeah.
There's lots of great shots that we have in this movie that I was just like, wow. There was the opening shot especially. I was comparing a little bit to Citizen Kane in the way. It's something about like the focal point or something that is making it
the dolly. It's the dolly in. Yeah.
Instead of like being far away and zooming in on something and making it look more like on a set, this was like in a physical world and close up, focal to where like you're up close and personal, sort of.
Yes.
And that sort of reminded me in a way to Citizen Kane with that opening shot. And that not to say that this is better than Citizen Kane.
No, I don't think it is.
I'm saying I am recognizing some of the 40s camera work and that they would be able to do. The cinematography was pretty great in this movie.
Citizen Kane came out in the 40s, right?
Yes, it came out in 42.
Right.
Which was 2 years after this movie. But especially Citizen Kane would have expert cinematography.
Greg Tolan.
Let's disregard Citizen Kane for now. We're totally throwing our Invisible Man out of whack, going like, oh, it's not as great as Citizen Kane. It is great.
I think it's pretty good. I would say I'd compare it to Son of Frankenstein in that it's a sequel that doesn't have the main character, or it builds on it, but it's not a direct sequel. I think there's enough time.
Yeah, because Son of Frankenstein has the original Frankenstein has died, and his son is sort of coming to take his place in his work. In this movie, we have the Invisible Man's brother, I think, who is given a dude. Of course, his name is Jeffrey.
Radcliffe.
Jeffrey Radcliffe. He has given him the serum for reasons we'll talk about later. But he becomes the new Invisible Man. And while he's not as iconic as the first Invisible Man, he doesn't have that same personality. And, Invisible Man the first is completely unforgettable. But this one does seem to have a little bit of merit. Of course, who is he played by?
He is played by the iconic Vincent Price.
Or as I call him, Fisher Price.
Oh, boo.
Because he's a baby. As we were talking, this is early Vincent Price, and you're saying he'd get much more iconic as he'd go with,
yes,
his mustache and
his
accent.
voice. His voice is so. I mean, anybody who's ever heard the Michael Jackson song "Thriller," there's a part where Vincent Price was asked to voice over that, and this came out in the '80s. But his voice is still so iconic and memorable. In fact, it's one of the things people remember about him, other than his kind of aristocratic air, the way that he acts, and his expressions. His mustache is very iconic. So seeing him in this movie without the mustache, he does look baby-faced.
Yeah, he does.
He's very new. He's very new here in this.
He is very new here. He isn't as iconic as Claude Rains' Invisible Man, but he does have some merit with some of the things that he does later in the movie, you can agree that he has some merit in that.
Oh, absolutely,
in that
absolutely. So we see some of the stuff that if you see later Vincent Price roles, you see some of the birthing of this.
He's an interesting Invisible Man to me. He's got some interesting.
He's not as brutal. He's not as brutal as Claude Rains' Invisible Man.
He's a bit softer, especially when you have
some
his,
ways.
His girlfriend, who was named
Helen.
Right. So many Helens.
Helen Grosvenor.
We have too many Helens. Helen from The Mummy. We have like a Helen in like one of our season 2 stuff, I think, had a Helen. There was a Helen in The Most Dangerous Game, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, so too many Helens to keep track of. But yeah, he's just. There was some, especially there's a scene later in the movie where he's talking with the Scarecrow. It really brings some personality out of him.
Yeah. He does have a moment where he does kind of echo the mania and the crazed megalomaniacal actions of Claude Rains for a short period of time.
And he also has the capability to be intimidating, as we see later in the movie. Just this great section of the movie where he is just lording over a dude while invisible.
Is it the Willie Spears?
No, not Willie Spears.
Cobb.
It was a Cobb. It was Mr. Cobb, another character other than Willie Spears, who's another character. Anyway.
We'll go over that when we get to
We'll go over it when we get to it. We're introducing things without explaining them. But he really is intimidating in this scene where he's holding him at like gunpoint, making him walk around to do the things that he needs to do. Like
he's got Willie Spears hung from a noose with a block beneath his feet, and it's all you have to do is tap it once, and he's like going to kill him.
This was, especially with just the silent, suspenseful scene, there's really a lot of intimidation. So he does have that bite to him later in the movie.
Well, I mean, he's been framed. I mean, he's got revenge on his mind. I mean, well, there's Invisible Man's revenge, but that's a whole nother thing.
That is a whole can of worms.
Boy, yeah, and I'll just tell you, listeners, if you're thinking, hey, I wonder if the rest of the Invisible Man series going forward are just as good.
Is there going to be a third Invisible Man? Is it going to be as good?
Well,
no.
There is a third Invisible Man, and that's Invisible Man's Revenge. It's not as good. Sorry, guys, but we're going to have fun with it regardless.
As we were talking about last episode, as they would go on, they would start being less Invisible Man and more Invisible and Man. The only commonality would be something goes invisible.
Yeah. There's Invisible Woman, which we'll do next, and that'll be a great counterpoint to this one. This one takes it pretty much seriously. I mean, there's some parts where he teases, Willie Spears, and it's kind of a little bit of a for comedy effect.
And then the third one is like, what if a girl turns into Invisible Man?
Invisible Woman is played entirely for comical effect. Absolutely, 100%.
Especially when they go like, oh, it's a woman. Oh, how unintimidating.
Yeah.
But hopefully she does show him she can.
Well, the movie is very sexist, so get ready for that. You do see the Invisible Man come into play later when he... when they had the Abbott and Costello movies, that what they did is they were like, what can we throw at Abbott and Costello that we have in the Universal things? Oh, let's put Frankenstein. Let's throw Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, the Wolfman.
Yeah, the Abbott and Costellos would be the comedy versions of
that's when it took a
Universal
turn.
monster
I still
films
like
that we
them.
had.
I still like them, but it kind of sucks all the fear out of it.
At that point, all of what made the Universal monster movies good was sucked out of it because they were just starting to run it into the ground.
Yeah.
At that point, they were going, see, we had this stuff from earlier.
If you got Abbott and Costello facing these guys down, that it's they become kind of a joke.
But that's what makes a unique selling point.
Yeah,
so that's why it may be interesting when we do them.
But it's time not to be scared of them anymore. It's just time to have fun. Then, you get Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man, and then there's Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and then the Mummy as well. As we go with those, and you can tell that it's starting to get diminishing returns as it goes. So let's start off with saying that how do you make a sequel to The Invisible Man when Claude Rains' character Jack Griffin, they call him John Griffin in this? Well, of course, John and Jack are similar. he died. You know, he died. Remember, he fell in the snow, and then they took him in there, and he faded in, but he died. Claude Rains' character died. How do you make a sequel to that? Well, like you said, you have his brother give the serum to Jeffrey Radcliffe, another character, and he becomes the Invisible Man. And the similar thing, that what they did, though, is instead of making it bring out in you your evil megalomaniacal tendencies, which that's how it was with in The Invisible Man, the movie and the book. With this one, it connects the madness a little bit to monocaine. Monocaine is called duocaine in this, but
why?
I don't know. H.G. Wells did not like that in the movie and in this one that they kind of blamed the megalomaniacal thing on the serum, because what he was trying to do is trying to show that when you can't be seen and you already have these evil tendencies in you, or maybe that they're just, you know, they're there under the surface, so you
can realize
they come out.
Power.
It's more psychological and it's more universal, and there's a morality to that.
Instead of blaming it on drugs.
On the drug. Yeah, because most of the time Jeffrey Radcliffe is okay. It's just when the drug starts to really, you know, seep into him, and then the feelings of revenge kind of combine with that in him acting that way. It's fine. You know what? I accept it and go with it. If it's what the movie is postulating, then you just kind of go, all right.
But yeah, let's get into some actual production meat here.
Okay, well, it was directed, it says Joe May. Nope, that's his Americanized name.
Yeah, Joe May would probably not be an actual
No,
name
he's from Germany.
If there is actually someone named Joe May, then...
Well, at this time, as you remember, a lot of directors and a lot of actors, remember Conrad Veidt? A lot of directors and actors were coming away from Germany after Weimar Germany. They're leaving there because of the rise of this kind of short guy with a weird mustache. You may have heard of him, Adolf. So his rise of the Nazi regime and the Third Reich, it's causing these directors to go, nope, I'm less free here. I can't be an artist unless I'm a slave to the powers that be and propagandists.
Yeah, a lot of people would leave Germany for America when Hitler was coming onto the scene. We were talking about that in Adventures of Robin Hood with Korngold?
Eric Korngold, absolutely, yeah.
The composer for that film left Austria, I believe, because of Hitler's taking over the place, so the Anschluss and stuff.
Yeah, Austria is right next to Germany. If you remember the movie Sound of Music, you remember that Austria, they wanted Austria to remain Austrian, but Germany was like, no, we're going to take it over, and it's going to be whatever we want.
Yeah, but now consider that, by 1940, Europe was officially in war with Germany, and, Germany and Poland, I guess? I don't know. I don't know.
Everybody.
I don't remember. Yeah, everybody who was associated with the Nazis. But, except for America. America wasn't in the scene yet until 1941. So most of the people were like, in the U.S., they would make movies on sort of fine, I guess, until 41 when they enter the war.
Okay, the thing with Germany is that the war is they would have left Germany probably a couple years earlier before it really got into play. So Austrian-born Joseph Otto Mandel changed his name to Joe May here in America. Also, writer Kurt Siodmak, we talked about him in the Ape episode. He came over here. They are a producer and director. They worked in German cinema. They mentored a guy you may have heard of named Fritz Lang. Before he fled to the States in 1933.
Them both?
Yeah.
In the Ape, we sort of dissed on Kurt Siodmak a little bit would be an understatement.
He wrote his own stuff. At least he wrote his own stuff.
He wrote his own stuff, and the movie writing was part of the reason why we were so flabbergasted at
he had some good... He did The Wolfman, which I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard he did The Ape, and I was
realizing all of the good stuff that he did for Universal, then I'm starting to go, maybe he was a better guy, and it really was the situation and what he wanted to do with the movie that was sort of got janky there. But other movies, he was fighter when he had a higher production budget and he could breathe in his money and go, okay, yeah, let's make a good movie.
Okay, so Joe May, I will tell you this, he didn't have that many movies under his belt after a while, and one of the things that made him do like the B movies is because he refused to learn English. So he was constantly speaking German. Of course, Vincent Price had some expertise with German. He could speak German, so that helped him out. So the thing is, if you can't communicate with your actors and with your camera crew and everything like that, it makes it really difficult. And he was probably very frustrated with, he wanted everything to go his way, a certain way. So they said he had a kind of a dictatorial style. It was like, you came from a place that had a really bad experience with a dictator. Don't you think you might not ought to be so dictatorial? But his direction is good, though, and we don't know how much it was him and how much was his team who just kind of went, yeah, we know what we're doing. All right, so Kurt Siodmak, he did Black Friday. He did The Ape as far as writing.
And he's going to do The Wolfman, as we are going to talk about him later, and his stuff about the Wolfman films. And he also wrote I Walked with a Zombie, 1943, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman,
Invisible Agent.
Invisible Agent, we will do that, and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Earth versus the Flying Saucers, we're going to do that one too.
So lots of pretty good stuff he's got here.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not as bad as we said he was last episode, and it was mostly all the other people who made the movie sort of subpar because it was the Foxhole.
But they had been cranking these movies out for a while. Universal had been cranking them out for a while. So a lot of the people knew what they knew what they were doing.
Decisions and then make good decisions every other time. They could go.
It's hit and miss. Nobody can just do banger after banger. It's just not possible.
But yeah, The Ape was crazy. Honestly, I would recommend you go see that one after you're done with this.
Yes,
one.
And then we'll probably get another interesting take on this in the next movie we do. So
all right. So what with this movie?
Well, this movie was I would say tamer than the previous one, because the previous one was more violent and he would choke people out.
I did notice that they didn't talk as much about God and stuff as they would have in the first movie. It's all because of the Hays Code.
Yeah.
It's all because the Hays Code. They don't like
and
that
the humor
stuff.
was it was dark humor in the first one. Like if it was funny, it was because he would be talking about, I'm going to drown a cat or something. I don't know.
In this one, it's funny because there's policemen that are just stupid.
They're dumb, and it has a lighter sense of humor about certain parts, especially with the great Alan Napier as Willie Spears. I'll talk about him in a minute. Also, they set the main character up not as this scary guy. They set up Radcliffe as actually likable
because he was talking with him and his girlfriend about how they'd never be able to see again. It was a very soft and tender scene, and so I was like, this is probably not as iconic as a dude, but it is pretty good.
I liked it. It's fine. It's watchable. It's fine. I don't hate it. It could have been worse.
He is much more likable as a character.
I think just like Son of Frankenstein, and Son of Frankenstein, I think, is the last truly good Frankenstein movie. And like I would say, this one, Invisible Man Returns, is the last truly good Invisible Man movie. I mean, you may disagree, but once you see it, you'll understand what I'm saying.
But yeah, Claude Rains he would have more of a bite to him. He's more gruff and pessimistic, as we see in his first scenes. He's like, I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah, he's hard to.
I want to show you who I am.
You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you?
He doesn't want you to like him. The director doesn't want you to like him. With this, Joe May wants you to sympathize with Radcliffe because, as we'll see, guys, whenever William goes through the plot later, he's on trial for a murder he did not commit.
And so he's defending himself out of a moral standpoint of, I know I did not do it. I'm innocent, as compared to the Invisible Man, who the Invisible Man does have blood on his vest and pants and stuff. So, yeah, we have sort of this more moral, more likable character here. I do have to agree.
I think the code has a lot to play with that on because they didn't want a main character that was, again, this killer.
But yeah, the stakes overall in this film versus the previous film, The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man really had the stakes of, oh, he's going to take over the town and stuff and become Invisible Man. The first, as we see in the novel, that was sort of stakes in the novel and sort of echoing that in the first movie. You know, he's toppling over trains and stuff. He is a big threat to this town, as we were talking about in the Invisible Man episode. In this film, it's a lot, the stakes aren't as high. It's more local.
Yeah, and it's more personal stakes. You know, it's like somebody said that I committed murder. I didn't. He killed somebody else that I know and cared about, and it was my friend. This guy has to go down.
But does this drag the pacing of this movie? I mean, you could say the suspenseful ending scene, or not ending scene, toward the end, as I said, the suspenseful scene where he's holding Cobb at gunpoint, that could drag on a little bit longer, but that's suspenseful.
When this movie really moves pretty quickly at the beginning, it slows down a little bit for the middle because, you know, he's kind of hiding out and trying to plan his next move, and then it picks up again, you know, toward the end. So again, a lot of movies do that. They kind of, you'll notice movies kind of slow down in the middle.
It's a reverse parabola.
A little bit, yeah. So let's talk about now. You may have thought, okay, Vincent Price, he plays the Invisible Man in this. Yes, but he's not top billed. The guy who's top billed is somebody we have seen before
in Things to Come, which is Cedric Hardwicke.
He's OBE. He's Order of the British Empire. You have to call him Sir, William. You have to get.
Sorry.
You know, Sir Alec Guinness, Sir Cedric
Hardwicke.
Thank you. You have to give him his due. Thank you. His flowers. All right. So.
All right. Well, you need to refer to Invisible Man as Invisible Man the Second.
Okay, I will then. All right. As he was, he is the best known actor in the movie. People knew him from previous things. He didn't do a lot of science fiction, but when he did, you know, it was. He goes, I don't drink a lot, but when I do, it's Dos Equis. No,
or wine.
Yeah,
I don't drink wine.
I don't star in much science fiction, but when I do, it's usually based on H.G. Wells. So he was in Things to Come in 1936 as Theotokopoulos. That's a really great episode, by the way, of ours.
He was a fairly brief role.
Yes, it was, definitely, because he's only at the end.
But yeah, Things to Come, 1936, the episode we did on that. Actually, that movie it does have some. It is a epic science fiction movie that we haven't really seen before on this podcast. Such epicness of the science fiction movie, even though it does have some political element that they're like, if you could shake that off just a little bit, I don't know. But I would recommend you see that one, even if it's drier, because it's like, so much politics, and it plays more like a history book than an actual movie. But it honestly. It's a really epic science fiction picture. I'd recommend you see.
Also, when we watch The War of the Worlds later on, that comes out in 1953, he narrates part of that. If you've read The War of the Worlds, there's some parts that's kind of narrated where it says, you know, it talks about, you know, in a small, you know, solar system, in a speck of whatever, you know, and it talks about, you know, space. You know, he gets to narrate that, so that's great.
But yeah, the special effects of this movie we talked a little about before with, like, John Fulton. John Fulton,
yeah.
You said was the guy who did it. There were also some effects that we didn't mention, which the last scene has one particular one that was really, really sort of cool. We'll have to talk about that later.
It's very memorable. I could watch that again and again.
There was also a part, surprisingly enough, where they used stop motion.
Yeah, with the rope. Yeah.
I was surprised. I was like, they're gonna use stop motion for this? Really? We haven't seen stop motion in a while, though. But
Yeah.
That was cool to see, and so it turns it into like Nightmare Before Christmas for like half a second, but like
That's interesting because, Nightmare Before Christmas.
this is Halloween, everybody make a scene.
Yeah, well, it's connected to, he didn't direct it, but it's connected to Tim Burton. And Tim Burton is connected to Vincent Price through a movie he did called Edward Scissorhands.
The Tim Burton bone is connected to the Vincent Price bone.
Yes, it is, because Vincent Price was the scientist who created Edward Scissorhands in the movie Edward Scissorhands. It was his last role, and he's like got white hair with a white mustache. It is sad to see him at the end of his life because you're like, oh, I think he did actually win some things for, was it 10 Commandments? The Cecil B. DeMille movie later. But he was nominated for an Oscar for this movie, but he didn't win. The one that did win was for Thief of Baghdad, which we'll do in a couple of episodes. All right, so back to Vincent Price. He's American. He has a very, very specific accent. He could pull off a lot of different accents, though. He's an art lover.
I feel like that's within his personality.
It is.
He would probably.
He had a love
art.
for theater when he was studying in London. This movie was only his 5th movie. He did a lot more later, but it's only his 5th movie. And he was in a movie, okay, with the other actors in the Cedric Hardwicke and Nan Gray, who played
Helen.
Yeah. She also played Lily in Dracula's Daughter. She was the famous artist model for the Countess Maria Zaleska. They were all in the same movie together. They were like Vincent Price and Nan Gray and Cedric Hardwicke. You guys were all in Tower of London.
Just oftentimes, people find actors by their association with themselves, their successful association with themselves in previous films. That was often how it would go. It's like, oh, we've seen each other before. How about we do another thing? That's pretty cool too.
that worked out for Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. I mean, they did like 6 movies together.
Yeah, he had the both of them and Eric Korngold as well.
Yeah, Eric Korngold did a lot.
Captain Blood.
Captain Blood is great. We keep mentioning these movies that are great, and we have to go, oh well, we're not watching it for the series for these episodes, so blah blah blah. But here's the thing: I wonder if there's just a time when you and I can, I don't know, do it for fun instead of just for the podcast.
We have a life,
Yeah, I know we have a life, but we could just sit back and watch something, just for the heck of it. So Vincent Price has great voice and dictation. It's not quite as nuanced as Claude Rains, but he's almost the most fitting guy for this.
And we've talked about him extensively a couple minutes ago.
He didn't do as many horror movies, I think, for about 10 years. He's been connected with as a horror icon, but he didn't do horror movies, and for like 10 years after this movie. So it probably started about 1953 when he did a movie called House of Wax that just made it like boom. Yeah, you're a horror icon.
You might say that the wax solidified. His
solidified.
Role.
It didn't melt at all. His career. So he was in The Fly and The Return of the Fly, which he wasn't in The Curse. But we'll do those two. And he did a movie called House on Haunted Hill that's very iconic for that. Horror with sarcastic humor is like his thing. And he did narration and music. He was in Alice Cooper's song "The Black Widow," and like I said, he did Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yeah, I spent that music video, especially with like him turning into a werewolf.
Yeah,
would especially be sort of that horror stuff we're gonna get with the Wolfman.
Vincent Price did the narration right before all the zombies start doing their infamous dance, so it's great.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. The funk of 40,000 years. The evil of the thriller.
All right, so in the 60s, he did tons of Edgar Allan Poe based things like, what was it? Mask of the Red Death, The Raven, but it had Lenore, it had, the poem, it had Nevermore, it had all that, but it had more of the spell casting in it. Hey, go figure. All right, so also there's a connection between two of the actors here, okay? Vincent Price played a character that was created just for the Batman 1966 series called Egghead, because he had a big head that's shaped like egg.
Wait, was he egg themed?
Yes.
Did he look like Humpty Dumpty, or what was his head just?
His
big?
head was just egg shaped, and he was bald. And he had egg themes for almost everything he did.
Oh, that sounds hilarious.
It's great. It's freaking great.
And the other guy?
The other guy that he had a connection to was Alan Napier, who plays Willie Spears in this. He played, we most remember Alan Napier for a little role he plays as the butler Alfred in the 1960s Batman series.
An older Alan Napier.
It would, the white mustache and everything. And he didn't get to show off as much of his acting chops as you get to see in this movie. Because this character is very different from Alfred. So I was like shocked going, wow, he's not bad at all. I thought he was very one note, but that's because he's playing Batman as one note because he's getting paid handsomely for it, which we'll talk about in a minute. All right, we are going to see Vincent Price again as Captain Rober in a Jules Verne movie, Master of the World. Also in another one called The Last Man on Earth. And like I said, his voice is very deep and smoky, many times because smoking does do that to your voice. And the downside of that is that you get emphysema, and that's how he died in 1993. It was very shortly after performing his last role in Edward Scissorhands.
Let's talk about another character who happens to have the color of smoke in her name.
Nan Gray, right?
Yes.
Okay. Remember her, she was Lily in Dracula's Daughter. I just mentioned that. She mostly did B-movies later on in her career until she quit in 1941. I think she got married and just became a happy housewife, homemaker, whatever you want, and had a few kids. I think she got married a couple times. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes women would kind of end their careers a little earlier if they were comfortable and happy. You know, why keep going?
And plus, 1941, the year that the U.S. would be into World War II, she probably could have also felt some responsibility to the state.
The home front.
The woman taking over the industry.
That's right. Well, it's possible. It's possible. One guy that I wasn't super impressed with was John Sutton as Frank Griffin, a.k.a. Jack Griffin's brother. He's okay.
And he also did have glasses in this film, which is some good glasses representation for a main character, which we haven't seen.
Are we just saying that because
at least outside of old men?
You wear glasses, so you're kind of
you
want some representation.
I noted
from
it interestingly, and also again, as I said, reflections in this film. Glasses have reflections, but yet glasses representation from a main character who isn't an old man like Boris Karloff in The Ape.
I did like the guy who played the police inspector in this, Cecil Kellaway. He did a really good job in that. He's also in a movie we're going to do called The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which I really like that movie. It's it's a proto kaiju. It's American kaiju, but it's proto kaiju movie. I really like. If you don't know what a kaiju is, it's that's Japanese for giant monster, or daikaiju. It means giant monster, and it means, I call a kaiju movie anything from King Kong to Gorgo to the giant behemoth to Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
So if it's bigger than an elephant,
yeah, well,
or in the case of Godzilla's infamous son, slightly less than an elephant.
He's big in some scenes and small in others, if you count the one where it's a dream sequence. But anywho, all right. So I think that Cecil Kellaway is actually the cousin of Edmund Kellaway, aka Edmund Gwynn, who played Kris Kringle, aka Santa Claus, in Miracle on 34th Street in 1947. He tried out for Cecil Kellaway tried out for the role too and didn't get it, but his cousin did, and he was very successful in it, and that would make a very interesting mealtime kind of, I got that role and you didn't. All right, so okay, here we go. Alan Napier. He absolutely kills it in this movie. I thought he was great as Willie Spears. He's actually the great-great-grandson of Charles Dickens. I did not know that. He's done a lot of different diverse roles, but again, you know, if you've only seen him as Alfred in Batman, you'd be kind of surprised because he's very soft-spoken as Alfred, but in everything else, he's just like bam, bam, bam. All right, so here's the story about how he got Alfred. So he says his agent called him up and said, I think you're going to play on Batman. He said, what is Batman? He said, don't you read the comics? He goes, no, never. That's a bad thing. He says, I think you're going to be Batman's butler. I even think you get to drive the Batmobile. He said, this is all crazy nonsense to me. I said, Bobby, no. And he said, if it's a success, it may be worth over $100,000. He goes, I'll do it. So the money, he's like, oh, comic books, this is pish-tosh, this is rubbish. $100,000, yes, I'll do it.
If I'm as rich as Batman, then I'll do
yes.
it. If I'm an orphan, fresh boy, living up the dream in a manner.
Right, exactly, Master Wayne. So, okay, he was a good friend to another actor named Michael Goff, Michael Goff played Alfred in the 1989 Batman that was directed by Tim Burton. Interestingly enough, there's another connection.
Would he be in other Batman films after that?
Michael Goff did play Alfred in the other Batman movies, Batman Forever and Batman Returns and Batman and Robin. But sadly, he died shortly after doing Batman and Robin. He was not Alfred in the new reboot movies. That was Sir Michael Caine. You know, oh Master Wayne, I failed you. I love Michael Caine. He's so great. I'll blow the bloody doors off. I cannot do a good Michael Caine impression on I'm sorry. All right. So they actually called the Joker Jack Napier in the 1989 Batman, and he's possibly named after Alan Napier, but that's a legend. It's not really confirmed.
I would honestly do that. I would honestly do that if I were one of them. I would
The reason the movie looks so good in certain scenes is because of Milton Krasner.
Yeah, great cinematography. Again, also art director Jack Otterson.
Yes, he did Son of Frankenstein. Right.
There were definitely some good set pieces as well that could also borrowed from the set director. But yeah, art direction is pretty good, especially as we have in the last scene shot with the Invisible Man becoming an invisible.
Yes, it's really good.
Would have probably definitely had to have input from him on how cool that was. But
well, to sum this up really quick, I would say one quick thing. I will tell you that kudos goes out to the crew on this because they pulled some almost all-nighters. This movie was $200,000 budget. That doesn't sound like a lot.
Yeah, Dad said the Scarecrow shot took like hundreds of hours.
Not hundreds. I said it took hours. But it's only like a short shot.
Yeah, it took hours for them to do for such a short shot. I don't know
why.
Well,
they were trying to get it to look just right when you peel the clothes off the Scarecrow and put them on. Maybe it didn't work or look right, and they're like, we got to do it again.
We got to do it again and again on the black velvet.
The black velvet shots.
All for just 2 sticks and a bunch of felt coverings.
Yeah, exactly.
Just wasting our time on large pieces of fabric.
Right. And a lot of this stuff, the funny thing is, and if you had a green screen and some decent camera, you could pretty much do the same effects they did in 1940.
Nowadays they make it easy. 1940s, they had to do a lot. Like 1940s, they had to literally operate on the film. If they made one mistake, they'd probably have to throw out the film and start afresh.
There you go.
And they had to splice it together physically.
And it was a waste of money. And then you get, if you had a dictatorial director like Joe May, he'd be like screaming about it going, you destroyed my cinema, you destroyed my films, I kill you. No, I'm kidding. All right.
Yeah, and it would corrode over time as well, which would be terrible. But nowadays, with the advent of digital technology and storage, this would definitely get easier and
There's
easier,
something
easier
powerful
processes.
about the way film looks, though, and I can tell the difference.
Yes, there is. Old movies just have something about them that new movies, Iron Man, cannot compare to.
Do you remember we said that the Ape was like filmed in less than a month, and then less than a week or something? It went up in a month after that.
I mean, usually these films around this era do film relatively quickly as compared to Avengers.
This movie was, like I said, $200,000 to do, but it was like almost as soon as it started, they were like behind.
Whoa!
They had them like filming up till like midnight every night. So these guys were like tired.
That would make lots of sense because there's lots of different sets and different events, different locations that are in this movie. So
there's some indoor shots and there's some outdoor shots.
Especially with the Invisible Man, they probably had to film again and again and again just to make sure it was right.
Yes, absolutely. Now, like we said at the beginning of the episode, I think it is probably it's probably one of the last really good, well done Invisible Man movies. The rest of them, like I said,
This movie was pretty
returns.
solid, pretty great. but it would get diminishing returns. But this Returns was pretty
Not
great.
as good as the first one, but still good, serviceable. But as they go, it's like a downward slope, and it jumps off pretty quickly with the Invisible Woman. But then you could at least kind of say it does. Invisible Woman, which comes after this one, it has no connection to the previous movies except for the word invisible. It doesn't even mention. I don't think it even mentions Griffin. I had to watch it, but it doesn't even mention the name Griffin. I think Invisible Man's Revenge might name drop Griffin as having something to do with it. So at least you could consider it almost like part of a trilogy. But Universal still considers the Invisible Woman part of this Invisible Man series, even though it's really tangential to the whole thing. But again, I think it's a good movie. The plot is very interesting. It doesn't spell it all out for you in detail. You have to kind of piece it together as you go. You have to listen to the dialogue and just kind of sit on the edge of your seat. It really does move for an hour and 30-40 minutes, or it moves pretty quickly when it has to. So okay, what are your thoughts?
But yeah, this is an hour 20-minute film. So yeah, it has some pretty good stuff under its seat versus like the Ape Man, which was just in and out and in and out. Every single shot was just like zoo.
You mean the ape?
Yeah, I said the ape. I meant the ape.
The ape really moves too. It's just like you just don't want to go. You just don't like where it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But yeah, this has been us. This has been us talking. I thought the movie was pretty great. I love the effects in this movie. I was surprised at how good they were. I thought this was going to be sort of like another sequel where it was less than the others in some aspects.
Oh, get ready for that. Get ready for that as we get a couple movies in.
The effects definitely were pretty good. So I'd watch some of the movies I would definitely watch this movie for some of the things that it does. And the way it takes the story is definitely pretty good in my book. As I said, stuff like, I would definitely do this way. Even in the modern era, this is a pretty solid script setting point. But yeah.
If somebody said, hey, can you show me a good old Invisible Man movie? You could show them this one and go, this one's pretty good. And then let them figure that out. But don't show them the bad ones.
You don't really need to have seen The Invisible Man to see this one.
Right.
So, because it's sort of tangentially related to it, because it's jumping off of it, going like, oh, time skip, and the only reference to it is in the name where they changed Jack's name to John mistakenly. So,
and they show Claude Rains' picture, and they go, oh, this is that guy's brother. Moving on.
Yeah, while it isn't the shot from him in the movie, it's a shot from him from a different.
I thought it was a headshot.
It's a headshot of him as a normal person, not as how he appeared in The Invisible Man 1931.
A lot of times he would take a headshot of you in a dramatic pose, looking off.
That was his college photo.
That was him going, hey, over here, and he goes, da-da, take a photo.
But yeah, it is well timed for us to disappear and then reappear.
Yes.
For a new segment.
I'm fading out.
Of the plot. We are going to fade out, and next time to join us after the break, I'm going to present to us the plot of The Invisible Man Returns. So stay tuned for that.
Sounds good.
Just before we get into this episode, I wanted to note a certain someone reset his microphone settings, and there is just a high-pitched ringing all throughout his audio. I tried to make it as palatable to the ear as possible, but you'll just have to bear with me here. Back to the hopefully amazing content.
Welcome back to Cinematic Fantastic. This is the second half of the episode.
Yeah, Invisible Man's back. All right.
Right. Half the time without any clothes on. He's really cold, guys. And he's usually in Europe. What is the deal with Invisible Man in Europe all the time? Why can't he be like in the
Yeah, man, what is the deal with a really popular big a big continent and origin continent for many of the world many of the people of the world. Yeah, it's totally. Why could it have been anywhere else?
Yeah, the tropical. Can he be the invisible man in the tropics? So when it gets warm, he's just like, "Ooh, this feels nice," But he has to be in the foggiest, rainiest.
Do you want him to book it to Los Angeles or something?
Look, there's been Invisible Man movies that have
Although,
taken place in
honestly,
America.
in Los Angeles, with all that smog and all that ozone just building up,
would he show up?
To terrible chemicals, he would show up.
The
ozone would be too much, and he would also probably die from all the ozone.
Okay. To match you on that, the exhaust. Okay, the exhaust from cars. The steam coming out of sewer manhole grates, right? Another thing would be if he's in Seattle where it's raining all the time, he just look like a bubble walking around, like they say in the book.
Air conditioning. What if he's in a restaurant and there's some nice steamy bread cooking on that delicious
yeast rolls. This is making me really hungry. So
on a concrete stove.
So now you are the plot guy for this episode. So I'm really curious to see how you lay this out, and I want to experience the movie again through your eyes. Take it away, William. The stage is yours. The stage is set. Fade in.
All right, so when we start this movie, we get a really nice text effect. When the Invisible Man Returns logo, it fades in, sort of this smoky building up of particles, I guess, into this logo. And I was like, man, is that cool. And there's also some other text effects for the credits.
Yeah, I will tell you, there's a movie we're probably not going to do for the podcast. It doesn't, fit our criteria. But the movie is called Hollow Man, and it's basically the Invisible Man story told in a modern era with modern special effects. There's a title sequence in it where it has these little letters. Looks like they're little particles floating in a suspended fluid, and it plays the music, and it's very haunting. And you rotate through the liquid suspension, and the letters form the actors' names. And I'll just show it to you.
And of course, we talked about the 2021 or maybe even 2022, I don't remember, Invisible Man movie.
2020. I think that was a couple years ago. Yeah, that was with Elizabeth.
I'd say it's 2021, but I could be wrong. But let's actually begin the movie. So the movie begins in Radcliffe Manor with Dr. Cotton, some other people. I don't remember what their names are, but
the butler.
They don't really appear again.
The butler, the maid,
the people, the butler, the maid, stuff like that. They're discussing recent news over dinner, and to talk about this first shot of the Radcliffe Manor gate. It's a nice low pan shot, sort of evoking Citizen Kane in some of its, you know. As I said before, it's just something about the focal length or something about it that's just feeling a bit more personal and a bit more evocative of the Citizen Kane camera shot.
But what came first, the chicken or the egg? Didn't this shot come before Citizen? When did Citizen Kane come out? 42?
It's talking for the innovation of cinematography in the 1940s.
True.
In general, there is some shots of this movie, and I did just, again, talk about this before, but in general, some shots of the movie just, instead of zooming in from afar, getting nice, low, and personal, and there's some great shots in this movie, the way that they are presented. So anyway, we do get at the kitchen table, we do get a little pan up at the clock for a short second. I really liked that. We did record a reactionary thing, but most of it got cut out. So whoopsie daisy, we did an oopsie. You won't be hearing it until sometime towards the end.
It was lost to time. It was lost to time, like the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, we'll have to let it go.
But yeah, I really liked that. Also, there's another instance of it later. Also, as I said earlier, I did love the reflections on the china tea set on the table, and especially when we have the new Universal logo here with the reflections, the crystal ball. Was really professing to that. Anyway, the gist is that Sir Geoffrey Radcliffe is about to be executed because Mr. Richard Cobb, who now owns the Radcliffe Family Mining Company, has accused Sir Geoffrey of killing his brother Michael. That's the gist of that. He's going to be executed. So, next scene, we see Mr. Cobb and Miss Helen Manson, who is Sir Geoffrey's love and who is the object of Cobb's affection as well. Sort of a bit of a love triangle that he's sort of capitalizing on it because her boyfriend's dying. Might as well sidle up to her.
And may I be the first to say, because he is kind of like, I mean, he's kind of gross. And she kind of, whenever he gets close enough to kind of seem like he's really moving in, she kind of pulls back and goes, okay. So she's not having any of it, and I think that's where part of the conflict comes in, I would say.
But yeah, we also have Dr. Frank Griffin, who is the brother of Jack Griffin, Invisible Man, the first himself.
Yeah, Claude Rains,
who is dead by this movie, obviously. Yeah. So he serves sort of as the company doctor, I guess. He does have a lab down there as well. Again, Jack Griffin is referred to as John in this movie, and also Mona Kane is referred to as Duo Kane. Like, why? This name change does nothing.
I got
Mono
it.
to Duo.
I got it. Okay, I just realized. Mono is 1, Duo is 2. So if Invisible Man 1,
are you saying it's going to be Tri-Kane in Invisible Woman?
No,
okay,
no, the Revenge.
I swear, if you come in Revenge, but
yeah.
So Invisible Woman technically isn't a canon.
It's not.
You're saying it right here.
It's not canon.
But I swear, if it is Tri-Kane in that movie, then I swear.
Triple Kane.
Yeah, it's starting to sound like a mint brand.
Trident. Yeah, it's called Trident. Yeah, I put Trident in me, and I wanted to rule the world. You see, because when someone has fresh breath, they can just take over and no.
Like, dude, that's a comical amount of mints.
X asks, "What do you smell like?"
Well, I can tell you what Tails smells like. Mint.
Guys, I haven't had that many mints.
Tails, there are 3 empty mint tins on the floor around you.
We'll get 5.
Tails, stop! That's a comical amount of mints!
It's triple. You gotta have more, quadruple. Okay. Yeah.
Tails, lay off the mints.
Tails, lay off the mints.
Anyway, so Frank, he goes off to the prison to see his brother one last time. Although, as we see shortly later, this wouldn't be exactly why
that's not Frank's
he was
brother.
going.
It's his friend.
No, it's Frank himself is going to see.
Whose brother?
Oh, right,
Jeffrey.
no, yes.
Jeffrey, yeah.
It is his friend.
Right,
Thank you for catching that.
Yeah, there's so many relationships that kind of.
I don't know. I was like seeing his brother one last time. How epic is that?
Yeah.
I do note a shot where they focus on the clock again.
You like a good clock. You know what? You like a good clock shot.
I said me likey.
Yeah,
so
you do.
I do likey. So. But there hasn't really been anything that focuses on a clock, really, that we've seen in that way. I don't know. I just noted it for doing that. I mean, like M, maybe, but I don't know.
Yes, but the only person who loves clocks as much as you would probably be Emmett Brown from Back to the Future or the band Coldplay. Those who understand those references, good for you. If William doesn't, that's fine. He'll understand.
I'm from a young generation and have missed out of 80% of so the clock is here to say that hours have passed when he has come to see him. And so we have this big swath of people who are walking through the hall just for a policeman to shout, "He's gone!"
They're coming to execute him. When you see a reverend and you see other police officials, the reverend is going to usually gives the criminal his last rites. He'll be like, "In nomine Patri et Filii Sancti,
cum
grado salus, may your spirit, go to heaven, etc., and hopefully not hell." I don't know. I don't know what last rites are, but they usually have a pastor do or a priest or a cleric, and what they do is it's called a dead man walking. They'll take the dead man, quote unquote, the live man, and walk him through. And it's called dead man walking because sometimes the other criminals will say dead man walking so that they can look through they can see him go for the last time. But that's why they're coming.
This next part has him comically explaining how Sir Radcliffe, turned the corner after washing his hands and he disappeared, leaving a pile of clothes. Next scene is a scene setting shot of Misty Forest Zone Act 2. Honestly, Misty Forest sounds a bit more like a paint color than perfume, but that still works.
Where was Misty Forest's Act 1?
I believe that was Dracula's daughter when we referred to that, and we said, it was Misty Forest, the fragrance.
Oh, right.
We
will see it again.
But yeah, that still works, but it could also be a paint color.
Every time there's a misty forest, we're going to say act, and we're going to say 2 or 3 or 4. We're going to count how many misty forests there are.
Well, problem is there's only usually 3 acts, so
we
only have one more act.
More act. We're going to count the.
We have to choose which one. Well, technically, it's been on Act 2 since Dracula's daughter.
This is like Cinema Sins, where they count the numbers of certain things.
We'll just go back to Act 1. It's easy.
Yeah.
So, but here's why we're in a forest. An invisible person's footsteps are shown in the grass. Radcliffe is obtaining clothes from a random suitcase in the woods. And it would be revealed later as Radcliffe.
Who left the clothes there? I think it was Griffin.
I don't know. It was just randomly in the woods.
No, I think it was Griffin. Because Griffin gave him the formula, took his clothes off, he escaped.
He gave him the formula so that he could escape, and also the clothes to escape.
Yeah, well, Griffin knew that this is the place where Griffin would leave the stuff. So
technically Frank is a criminal.
It's all going according to plan.
All going to plan.
Yeah, it's working out so far.
Next, Frank is notified of Sir Radcliffe's escape in his lab at the coal mine. By being, the company doctor, I guess, which actually, now I think about it, sort of makes sense for a coal mine, especially when you've got lots of sickness that happens from that.
That's what I was thinking,
chest
too.
Compressions.
Yeah. When you first said that about company doctor, I was like, well, yeah, because when you work in a coal mine, you might get black lung disease.
Probably care for and buy all of the canaries you're going to need to send down there.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, they usually put canaries down in coal mines to make sure that if the canary dies, then you need to hightail it out of there because their lungs are weaker than humans, obviously, so you will die in less time than a canary.
Yep, and it's a good...
Sad but true.
It's also a song by the Police, Canary in a Coal Mine. It's also a song by the Police, so...
Whoop, whoop, this is the sound of Police.
No, the band The Police with Sting. I guess they did that for Uncle Paul, so he would laugh. All right, so continue.
Yeah. So the Inspector Sampson, I think, who was
played by Cecil Kellaway.
Yes, but he came to tell him the news, and
I like him.
He's sus of Frank, but the argument goes in Frank's favor, and that's how the scene ends. Lots of crowd shots and pans of the coal mine square, I guess.
Yep.
It's not a town square, but it's more. It's like a town square, but it's in a coal mine building company.
It's built on the Universal backlot. They built that whole thing on the Universal backlot. Yeah.
It's a cool set, though.
It is. Yeah, it's very, very complicated. So, yeah, they must have spent some money.
Also, yeah, this little part of the scene does introduce us to Willie Spears. We'll see more of him later.
He's one of my favorite characters.
Played by Alfred.
Alan Napier. He's one of my favorites in this, other than
next we've
Jeffrey.
Next we've got Inspector Sampson of Scotland Yard. If I didn't mention it, it's Scotland. It's always Scotland Yard. I don't know why. Scotland is. I mean, it's closer to Britain, but I mean, what if you're in Ireland?
Well,
you have to.
Scotland Yard is considered, I think, in Britain. It's almost like a secret police, interagency cooperative thing. Whenever they say Scotland Yard, I keep thinking of Sherlock Holmes because they drop that.
Me too.
I love it. It does make it feel more British.
I think Moriarty had something to do with Scotland Yard as well, but Scotland Yard is home of all of Sherlock Holmes's rivals in the case agency.
Legrand, what's his name?
Inspector Legrand.
Yeah, Legrand.
But Inspector Sampson of Scotland Yard, I believe that is he investigating Frank's lab by puffing his cigar in the air to catch the invisible man. As he says in the movie, in smoke or rain, it becomes visible.
I have this feeling that he knows he's been doing research, or maybe he's like a fan of...
Ever since he escaped, he's like, I'm gonna get all the case.
Well, dude, you remember, the actual Invisible Man thing did happen in this story. So I have this feeling like maybe as a younger man, my headcanon, as a younger man, maybe a couple years ago or 7 years ago, whatever, this guy got obsessed with the story of Jack Griffin, and almost like one of these, people that
he wanted to be a hero.
Well, he went through all the newspaper articles and went, this is fascinating. So he figured out his
strategy.
The strategy, also the weaknesses. He's very what we call genre savvy. It's almost like he's like, I know how to kill these vampires, Silver and Moon. How did he know all that stuff? Because he's he knows the stuff that we know. It's like when somebody goes, oh, the killer we shouldn't split up because, the killer he preys on people that split up, because that's genre savvy. He does seem a little genre savvy, but not too much. He almost sounds like he knows the previous case. That's what my headcanon says, is that he's kind of into the Invisible Man lore. That's it. That's what I'm
But yeah, this cigar puffing comes to great use later,
it
but
does.
there is no Invisible Man here in the lab.
Nope.
So next scene, we see Sir Radcliffe. He's looking spiffy, and his head is all wrapped up, and he's all begoggled. He arrives to Helen, and their old pal Ben Jenkins's cottage mansion home in the woods. Do I have that entirely right?
Yes, I think so. And the dog. And the annoying looped dog. Oh my goodness.
And the annoying looped dog, where I did note at one point, I believe there was a point where the dog was just panting, but they put barking over it. So I was like, that dog is obviously panting. Why is it, how, it can't do that.
He's the best dog in the world, man. He could pant and bark at the same time.
He's not a lassie, though. He's not a lassie, though.
Or Lassie, or Rin Tin Tin. Yeah, exactly.
Was Rin Tin Tin from Tintin? That would be weird if there was Tintin and
The
Adventures of Tintin and Rin Tin Tin.
That would be actually great. It'd be like a crossover between Tintin and Rin Tin Tin.
And then the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And the TMNT. All right, so no, but they're just, whenever you have a dog that's like really good at things and people like him a lot and he's real skilled, he just becomes very memorable. I have no idea. I have a lot more that I know about Lassie than Rin Tin Tin.
Dogs are man best friends, supposedly, so.
Very smart, very smart. But this one can pant and bark at the same time. And when he barks, he can do it in exactly the same inflection as he did on the previous bark. It's amazing.
It's amazing. But yeah, the dude literally does hold his dog's, he holds his dog's mouth shut a little bit too long.
Didn't like it.
Just keep him quiet. Don't abuse animals, kids, just letting you know. But we have the Ludbirds, they're just talking romantically, they're discussing their future. He tenderly whispers to her at the end of the scene, "If my mind should go, chain me if necessary. Hold me to my promise. I don't murder." Which is fairly interesting, how he is sort of treating it. He's not insane, even though he's the Invisible Man. However, this will be rectified later. But yeah, this is a sort of less iconic Invisible Man. He doesn't have all of the quirks, though. He's pretty good when he gets later, obviously, but this is baby Vincent Price. This is Fisher Price,
Vincent Price was just getting going. He'd only been in 5 movies. Give him a break. Like a good wine, he does get better over time.
We'll probably see a bit more of Vincent Price later in his career.
Yeah, we have, we already talked about some of the movies we're going to see him in.
And there's definitely gonna be lots to talk about with him later.
He's definitely a thriller.
So next scene, yes, I think this is it. Next scene, Frank is experimenting on guinea pigs to turn them visible from being uninvisible.
Oh, brother.
The effect of seeing only but the cuff around the invisible guinea pig just scooting around on a string is hilarious. That was like that. I could clearly see the string, but it's just funny.
But they committed. Look,
convincing, but hilarious.
Somewhat convincing, but I think John Sutton, I guess, is the guy who plays Griffin's brother.
John Cena.
John Cena. Also, You Can't See Me, John Cena.
You Can't See Me.
Yeah, he's the ultimate Invisible Man, John Cena.
Yeah, we need an Invisible Man movie with John Cena. I've probably called it, but that'd be hilarious. Also, celebrity placement.
No, because John Cena wants you to see his face because he's very iconic in the way he looks.
Yeah, he injects it with serum and it becomes visible. Before the light fades from its eyes and its cuteness enters the afterlife.
They ask you how you are, you don't just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine. You just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Oh, man, you had to bring that up.
Sorry for giving you PTSD if my description was a little bit too much for you.
not to wax a little bit, sad, but
guinea pigs are gentle, fragile creatures.
We have lost pets. They're much beloved. Shout out to our lost pets. We love you. But yeah, they didn't kill really. They didn't
I
kill
guess
him.
They need to make a sequel to All Dogs Go to Heaven called All Guinea Pigs Go to Heaven.
That's sweet.
Because they do.
They do. All right, so
or maybe they don't. We don't know. Next, a policeman on a bike, not a motorbike, or just a regular bike. I don't think we've had Well, I think we did. I don't remember. But he encounters the barking dog and becomes suspicious, and its apparent target, the upstairs window. We do see Jenkins find out Sir Radcliffe is invisible while he's vulnerable, just like the previous movie. I was like, why does it always have to be a guy delivering tea that is the only moment when you can catch the Invisible Man unawares? So Ben Jenkins tries in vain to stall the policeman from coming in without a warrant. He's like, I don't need a warrant where I'm going.
Right, my face is my warrant.
Yeah. And so being spooked at Sir Radcliffe's beguiled appearance, he phones home to the station to ask if he will arrest him, not should, which I note is like, will arrest him? You should probably ask, should arrest him. I mean, Kurt Sudback, maybe, you probably should have proofread it one more time. Just one more time.
Second pass. A second pass.
Caught the one word. But I mean, there are people who probably proofread it, so...
Whoever did the second pass didn't do as good of a pass, to be honest.
Whoever did the Borgo pass is a Dracula fan.
Is a Dracula
Anyway,
fan.
So Inspector Sampson tells him to catch him, but to not take off his clothes, which is the joke for the rest of the scene. What he says, he wouldn't. There's a lady with him.
Don't let him take his clothes off. Why would the cop take his clothes off?
Yeah, he was like I'm not going to take his clothes off.
Yeah, right.
There's a lady with him.
There's a lady with him. He wouldn't take his clothes off.
And when he bursts in on the both of them, she having fainted, the clothes on the floor, he says he did take off his clothes. That's why she fainted. Oh. And so that's the joke for the rest of the scene. Ba-doom ching. So, next scene, Inspector Sampson and his assistant match the fingerprints on the windowsill to Sir Radcliffe. So they are on the case.
They know it's him. Yep.
Next scene with some hilarious invisible gags sprinkled in. We have Sir Radcliffe come to see Frank for an antidote for his invisibility. So Frank withdraws blood from his arm vein. Sir Radcliffe asks when he'd go bad. And Frank says, 2 days, 2 weeks, who knows? And I'm like, 2 days? You are just, why did you even do that? I guess he was expecting to get it done within a day, but somehow I guess it didn't totally work immediately.
Right.
I guess. Oh, right. Unfortunately, we have Willie Spears come into the room. And from his hiccups and him itching his pinky in his ear, is establishing lots of personality, I note.
I think he's drunk.
He's
probably
I
think that's what they're trying to show, yeah.
But yeah, he's come to tell Frank that they're kicking him out soon, basically. They're like, we have no need of a lab, we're gonna kick you out. Not only do we find you sus for our good Sir Jeffrey being out, we don't need you anymore to that, instead kick you out.
Is he doing that because Cobb wanted him to? Cobb is...
Yes, he was operating for Cobb, and he was like, I'm gonna do the job that Cobb tells me to do. I am that corn on the cob.
Oh, wow.
Gotta wait for the Cobbs to show up. That's funny. They're a police department, and I said Cobb. Anyway.
Yeah, you did.
Next we have Willie Spears. He's driving away, and he runs over a dude at point blank range. Just casually. Casually.
Yeah, casually, as you do. Right.
As you do. Run over a person straight on with a camera. Fortunately, I don't think he, died and there was, visible spewage. But obviously not with the code. But he does straight just run over at least his shoe. So I do note that on the green screen car riding, they make it look like he hits a bump, which is slightly more immersive than not doing that.
Yeah, every little bit helps, yeah.
Every little bit helps. So anyway, he drives off into the woods when his engine door flies open and he stops the car in surprise. He's like, what? Some hilarity ensues because 'twas the Invisible Man who did so. He is just being a prankster in this scene. He's playing around with him and laughing as he does have his fun. There is a part in the middle of the scene where the camera movement swings around as Willie Spears is looking around for the Invisible Man. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty great camera movements there.
Jeffrey is really playing the part of a ghost, really. He's acting like he's a ghost, which I love.
As I'll shortly say.
Yeah.
We also get a nice close dolly run as Willie Spears then runs the bushes after he breaks a stick in front of him, I believe.
Yes.
So Radcliffe decides to pose as a ghost. He's sort of blaming him for him dying and falling in a ravine and stuff. He has a nice songy voice here. I'll play the particular line that I was like very soggy here.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yes.
I ran blindly out into the mist. I didn't know the marshes were there. I stumbled and fell. It pulled me down, inch by inch down. It was a horrible death, Mr. Spears. I can't find peace in the other world.
So he is a pretty good voice actor. He's just not at his prime yet. So Willie Spears then faints, and then we get to see him dunked in the water by him. It's so funny.
That was really good. He drags him across, while he's knocked out, he drags him.
Just constantly through this scene where like, oh, haha, whoa, oh my goodness. Not as fake sounding as that, but
yeah. Whoa.
I wish technology could just consistently work. But if you don't press record, then you're just wasting your time and not realizing that you're not actually doing anything.
It's fine.
Actually, dark thought.
What?
Existentialism. You can't recover time from not having recorded it. So
we'll be fine. Our reaction now is just good enough.
Just good enough.
Yes.
So, Willie Spears then confesses that Cobb was the true murderer of Michael all along, which was basically like the murder of Michael, his friend, I believe, was pinned on Sir Geoffrey. It was actually Cobb all along, and Cobb had offered Willie Spears a promotion in exchange for his silence. And of course, Cobb wanted to finish his scheme after his execution by becoming Helen's boyfriend.
How do you plan that? It's like he's like, yeah, you could plan a murder.
He's like, I'm gonna murder him, and then I'm gonna grab his girl and ride off into the sunset.
I think she has something to say about that. Like, I don't want to be your girl. No, I planned this, so you have to be. You see how
she doesn't take super much part for a lot of this movie.
She's concerned about Geoffrey.
She does be concerned, and she does appear in the movie, but she doesn't have much of a autonomous, personality. Like, what's her favorite breakfast food? I don't know.
Well, we
they don't ask that stuff.
To be honest, a lot of we talked about this before in earlier episodes. Even in season 1, but if female parts didn't have a lot of agency and autonomy, they were very much so kind of at the mercy of the story, and you went with what you got.
But at least this girl's taken, so there isn't really too much of a wooing over in this
she
movie.
knows Geoffrey's still alive, so as long as Geoffrey's still alive, I still got my man, is what she's thinking.
So Willie Spears is just weeping and weeping and weeping over this, believing that he didn't pay for his transgressions.
Alan Napier is doing a really good job in this. If you've only seen him, as I did, honestly, before this,
he's got the Scottish tramp Thomas Marvel-esque thing. Although I don't think he helps. He doesn't help. He doesn't help the Invisible Man, really, as far as I can tell. If he did, it was once, and very, very covered. Since the Invisible Man suddenly stops talking after this, he runs away to the safety of his home to pack his bags and hightail it, because he's like, well, I'm out of here. However, the Invisible Man meets him there and ties him up with the surprising return of stop motion. So we get this little shot of him tying him up with stop motion. I was like, I was surprised that they chose that for a thing.
Welcome back.
I was like, okay, welcome back, stop motion.
Yeah.
Makes me want to see Nightmare Before Christmas.
As long as Willis O'Brien or Ray Harryhausen are on the case, we're gonna see lots of good stuff. You just wait.
But yeah, this is not Halloween. This is the Radcliffe Mansion. So he goes to his mansion and ambushes Helen and Cobb talking to make Cobb write a confession of his crimes. But violence breaks out, and he tells Inspector Sampson of all but the reason the Invisible Man came. So he goes like, the Invisible Man's here, we've got to repair everything. But he's like, why on earth is he here? And he's like, reasons.
Right.
I don't know. He's unpredictable. Her friend pulls on his shirt sleeve. So next scene, we sort of really liked how this scene played out. A swarm of policemen with gas masks spray fog and mist around the place, and they're men in shiny reflective rain coverings searching outside. I gotta love that rain glisten. Gotta love that
nice
rain glisten.
Wet rubber, on rubber. Glorious. Love it.
And with the 1940s camera innovations, it can capture that.
Oh, they keep getting better. They keep getting better, my friend. Every year.
Keeps getting better and better.
And sometimes worse.
In terms of effects. And sometimes
There
worse.
are some movies in the 60s where they're like, we don't have those really good Universal movie cameras, but we got
But
these.
it's better than what they had in like the late 20s.
No,
and stuff.
you're right. We found these in a dumpster somewhere. Let's make a movie about a Japanese guy that can fly around.
Let's make a movie about a peach can. Guess what? So yeah, this scene overall we really liked. It was really cool. Really cool fog effects and the hailing of rain interacting both with the Invisible Man who appears next.
Oh, I love to see him in the fog.
And then the rain like pouring over him. Like he said earlier, he was like, "Oh, the rain will display me as a big halo," and we didn't get to see that really in the movie. I guess it was sort of said about in the book. And he mentions it in the movie, but it doesn't appear in the movie. This movie actually sort of takes advantage of that, and we get a short little bit of seeing him in the rain, which was really
It
cool.
is good, and they don't let you see it, and you just stare at it for too long, and you can see how it either doesn't look right or doesn't. It like comes in and goes, and almost like a flash of.
Yeah, with their green screening effect, there are some things where like some weird things will just be transparent for weird reasons.
Yes. And honestly, that happens a lot going forward.
We haven't really seen Black Velvet used extensively outside the Invisible Man because they didn't.
Yes, but they do use that for some other shots. Like there's a movie called Attack of the 50-Foot Woman that has a lot of see-through stuff, and I'm just saying it's rough.
So inside, Sir Radcliffe kidnaps a man and disguises as him to bring Helen outside under the reason ruse of Helen pretend fainting. Them not being able to do much because of his diversion. Next scene, they all have a grand dinner of celebration at Frank's house.
Yes.
I believe. And let's just play the resulting sudden Invisible Man insane speech that follows this moment.
It's a good speech.
You know, Frank, I'm beginning to get a new perspective on this crawling little animal known as man. Why, a dog or a cat or a bird is cleverer than any human. They sense me immediately. But these shrewd detectives of yours, take away one of man's senses and you render him helpless.
Jeff, you don't really think Richard could have killed him?
Could have. He did. I have proof of it. Dear old Inspector Sampson. He's turned out to be my best assistant. He's keeping Richard prisoner for me. Until I'm ready for him. And Richard's boyfriend, Spears, is anxiously awaiting me at his home. Free? I am free. I've never been more free in my life. You know, being invisible has distinct advantages. It gives one a sense of power that's exciting. Power for good, if you're so inclined. Or should you feel perverse, you hold the balance and decide which way life shall go. No one can stop you. You don't need any infantile little Samsons to carry out your will. You're much greater than any of them. Rather a magnificent idea to play with, isn't it? More wine, Frank.
So Frank spikes the antidote with the wine refill that he gives him, and he calls for a toast. Jeffrey, however, sees through it and doesn't drink it.
Has it ever occurred to you that friendship at best is a rather doubtful asset? I don't want friends. I shall have worshippers and followers, people who will obey me because they recognize my greatness. Those who are loyal will be rewarded, and the others destroyed.
Hail, invincible leader. We follow you. Let's drink to the coming golden age which you will provide.
I don't think I care to drink with you. Somehow I don't feel very comfortable with you any longer.
Jeffrey.
Don't worry. I'll be back.
Get him to take the drink.
Don't stand there cowering. Sit down and finish your supper.
So at this point, Sir Radcliffe is just constantly giggling. And he does come back for the toast, only under the condition of making it to his new rule over mankind. And they just give phony smiles over it. And we were like, yes, man. Just, you're like, yeah, okay.
Okay, buddy,
Yeah.
you kill the world, yep.
So having drinking it, he just collapses suddenly after a couple seconds. However, he does wake up a couple seconds later after a couple things happening, having woken up chained to the chair seconds later, he wakes up. He fakes being sane again and asks Franks for some water before grabbing him and freeing himself. And this is when the police arrive. I do note that the chains were a little bit see-through.
Yeah.
In especially like the end that's connected to him, and just overall it was like transparent, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just there's black velvet. There's black velvet in every single color, so I guess don't wear, especially when you have like characters that have green shirts. By the way, with the Super Mario movie, they added a fake green screen effect, but forgot to mention. But I saw a person who was like, "Wait, Luigi's wearing green, right?" That would get comped out. That would trigger the green screen effect. So why is it, how on earth does green screen effect able to exist with a guy who's marketed around green? Anyway, that was I watched that short and I was like, wow, actually I didn't consider that, really.
Didn't catch it the first time, but yeah, when someone points it out to you, you're like, oh yeah, you're right.
It's in theaters.
Yeah.
If only it was in streaming, we could be able to see it for its full glory. Yeah, next scene is a pretty great scene. Terrible pacing because it's suspenseful. It burns a solid 5 minutes of just walking, but it's a great scene for its suspensefulness. It's because it's suspenseful that it's great. So Cobb is awoken by the Invisible Man pointing a gun at him and forcing him out of the manor, and he does do this under the guise of air, but he is narrowly passing by the other people's suspicion. Yeah, he was suspenseful because he literally has this under his armpit, and he's just having to just little tiny deedle doddles because he is scared at one misstep, and it's just bang, and between his eyes.
You're done. Or just between, or between your spinal column. Yeah, he's like, I want to get some fresh air. They're like, oh, we don't recommend that, sir. We don't think you should get some fresh air. And he's like, I really want it. Seriously, let me go out there,
please.
But the Invisible Man might be out there. It's okay. I'll take my chances, and then.
Yeah, I feel like that's how that scene went out. But he is led to Willie Spears' house, where Willie is being hanged, and he does say, "Oh, please, sir, I told him all about it. It was me." And there is some violence that breaks out. I do think Willie Spears dies because he was standing on a chair and he kicked the chair out from him.
I did notice. A
bit dark, but they cut away from it.
Yeah, but wait, I did see one. Maybe he did, but I did see one part. Willie's legs lift up, which means that Jeffrey got under his body to lift him up so he wouldn't choke to death. His legs, see, whenever you get hanged, your legs droop.
He'd be busy fighting the Invisible Man, as we say.
Well, when he went off to do that, Willie probably did die. I don't know.
Or as I should refer to him again, Sir Jeffrey, because he's not, the Invisible Man, in my opinion.
In this one he is,
In this one he is, but I'll talk a little bit more shortly about that.
Okay.
About my opinions on that. So, a fight breaks out, and he chases Cobb, trying to escape to the coal mine. Obvious speeding up occurs in the first part of the scene. We do see the crowd sort of running after him, and I was like, oh, this is sped up a good chunk of them out. So we got some good crowd effects when Sir Radcliffe forces through the crowd.
That's just people acting.
That's people acting, but they did it pretty convincingly. So
count to 3, and you're gonna move, and then you're gonna move, and then you're gonna move. Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, I think there was a film like that where all of its motions were planned to a specific degree.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to figure out which movie it is. I think it's the director just likes to do that. Anyway, so in the climactic scene, Radcliffe catches Cobb atop a coal car as it is about to dump them off the side. Haven't seen any cliffhanger type scenes really, man. But it's interesting to go like, oh, well, this is something we see usually where it's like this climactic, they're about to die moment. We haven't really seen anything like that, like this scene on the podcast really before.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. That's what I was saying about like, oh, there's some modern things we're seeing here, some modern writing choices, and they're sort of Universal is leveling up the capabilities that they're able to do. So fortunately, he is shot by Inspector Sampson. The Invisible Man is down. By now, the coal car has reached the top of the track, and the lever trips open the side of the car. dumps the coal and Cobb and the Invisible Man. I don't know if he fell or not, but because he's invisible, but into the pit.
I don't think he did because you see him climb down ladder. So I think he got shot, but he was still up.
He fell
top
onto
of the
track.
coal cart.
But yeah, Cobb and the coal are down the pit, and as he lies dying, Cobb confesses to the murder of Michael. And Sir Jeffrey escapes after we see him take the ladder down, which you were saying was pretty creative.
It's not bad. I like those little touches.
So next scene, we're sort of getting to the end of the movie. As he walks to the countryside, Sir Ratcliffe kindly takes the clothes from a scarecrow. Pretty great scene for his personality, I guess. So slowly dying, Ratcliffe makes his way to Frank's lab, and a transfusion is needed in order for him to keep surviving. Frank Griffin gets plenty of volunteers from the workers to help out with this.
Why did they get a lot of volunteers from the people? They liked Sir Jeffrey. Is that right? He was actually a nice guy. I mean, his butler liked him. His maid liked him. Everybody liked him, I think. Well, didn't he?
Well, either that or he had a team somehow, but the team would have, left him if anything got sus with what he's doing.
I think they liked him, and they were kind of shocked.
Well, the workers pitched in, the transfusion is successful, and Samson asks Frank if he'll live, and he says he will most surely die from internal bleeding. In exasperation, the doctor says, "If only I could operate. How can I when I can't see him?"
Right.
So Frank stages a last pitch effort on his antidote, and through the use of animation with a fantastic effect, the whole circulatory system of Sir Jeffrey Ratcliffe slowly appears, followed by muscle, skin, and finally revealing the face of our dear Vincent Price.
Yeah,
and we were
great.
like, wow, we're surprised at the fact they were doing this. Like, again,
it's all practical.
We were like, wow, they're using slow stop motion for this. And then the second one, they paint on the topology of, the human anatomy.
They made it look 3D, like with
and all the
lighting.
vessels of the veins. And it was pretty cool, pretty convincing.
Yeah.
It was literally one of the best effects that we've at least seen as so far from the franchise.
So far, so good. Yeah, I don't think they're
the
going to match
effects are
it.
just getting better and better. Although, again, just this hand-painted thing, you can't really match hand-painted stuff. So Frank then exclaims, "The new blood itself was the antidote." And so that's the story there. He does survive, and that's the end of the story. Now.
Yes.
While I do agree that there are lots of different things for this movie, making it a pretty great, solid movie in my opinion.
Yeah.
Honestly, in my opinion, I still can't shake the first movie as being one of my favorite, being my favorite.
Yeah.
Of the bunch, in my opinion.
It is.
I prefer that one more. I prefer, having read the book and then watch the movie as my very first Universal Picture experience.
Yeah.
And also probably first 30s movie. Definitely first 30s movie, really. I mean, Wizard of Oz, technically 39, but I would definitely have to say that the first one is still my favorite. It's still my favorite. And this one can't really trump it in terms of, having such iconic of an Invisible Man, such stakes as well, that they had in that movie, and in the book especially as well. Oh my goodness, the book. And that couldn't really super be matched. However, this movie does have some merit. This is, as I said before, Son of Frankenstein. This is where I'd probably take something like this if I were them. However, again, I probably would, do some different things to them, obviously not being them, and obviously being from a new generation of people. But, yeah, that's my opinion on this. This movie definitely had a lot of cool effects, and there was definitely some solid things about it, and definitely pretty rewatchable, but the first movie, in my opinion, that's got to be the GOAT.
Yeah, I let me give my opinion on it. I have to agree with everything you said. I would say that if you are going to watch an Invisible Man sequel, this is the one to watch.
And as you said earlier, this would be the last great Invisible Man, other than Revenge. And then Invisible Agent and Invisible Woman would be entirely unrelated.
Yeah, Invisible Woman is entirely unrelated, but Revenge is the Ghost of Frankenstein of the Invisible Man series. I think they had to start inventing new creatures because they're like, okay, we got the mummy, let's squeeze this one for all it's worth.
And that would be about the time that they start searching for new ideas. They introduce, the creature of the Black Lagoon.
They introduced the Wolfman for, very
Although
soon.
the creature of the Black Lagoon, as I was saying, the Wolfman is a werewolf, and werewolves were established in history. The creature of the Black Lagoon is something more unique of an idea.
It is. I would agree, yes.
Although, again, there is Loch Ness. Something in this form and this appearance wasn't really something well circulated.
No, it wasn't.
Definitely brings some popularity onto Universal, going like, Creature of the Black Lagoon, solid movie of the
50s.
I still believe it's 50s.
50s, yeah. I mean, things were heading away from, monsters that are traditional. They a lot of them were more, mutation, experiment, space-based. The monsters got larger. They were more apocalyptic. They were more extraterrestrial. That's where everything was going.
More unfamiliar.
The unfamiliar, the alien. Even if it's a non-extraterrestrial creature, it's an alien. It's different than us. It's we can't fathom its brain.
The xenomorphs. It's got X in the name. X is in the name usually used for anything.
Yes.
Name me an animal that has X in its name.
I can't.
See?
I can't.
I can't.
Right.
There probably is, but I can't.
And if you spell zebra with an X instead of with a Z, nope, not gonna work. Nope, sorry.
Well, I guess there's a Zemu. I guess the Zemu has an X in its name, have an X? But that's all I can think of.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's like a ox cow looking thing.
Right.
Buffalo.
Right.
I guess.
So
but yeah, this was The Invisible Man Returns. It was pretty solid, but definitely can't trump the first one in terms of iconicness.
Nice
the
try.
next movie we are doing is the ever comedic, ever probably not so great, and probably
problematic?
more sexist and problematic of a movie.
Oh boy.
The Invisible Woman.
I'm gonna have some fun with this one.
They're probably just gonna spoof the entire genre. I feel like this is what they're doing. This is their Men in Tights.
This is their Men in Tights.
This is their Life of Brian.
I think it was too early for them to be spoofing the Invisible Man. But yeah, the Invisible Woman next. It's not about Sue Storm or the Fantastic Four. As long as you realize that, you'll be fine.
And speaking of whole cloth, the next movie after that would be The Mummy's Hand, I believe.
Right.
Speaking of whole cloth.
Thank you.
That is the next movie we're doing after that, so stay tuned for that. And this has been Cinematic Fantastic. You have lots of episodes to look forward to. We do literally have hundreds in the making. So be excited. We'll be doing them. And this is Jason. And this is William.
Yes.
Signing off.
It is us. Bye.
We are fading. We are fading.
We're gone.
And we are gone. Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon!